Hmm? Ah!
I went to this South Florida meetup group here, all podcasters and stuff. So I went there and I was quiet, sat down, didn't say a word. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, So Jared Easley, one of the co-founders of the podcast movement, he's like, hey, all right, everybody introduce yourself. And how many years you been podcasting, right? So everybody's like, oh, I just started. Some of them were like, oh, I'm planning to launch later this year. Some people were like, oh, 2-3 years or 4, Yo, when it came to me and I was like, oh, I've been doing this, it's going to be 9 years. This is like years ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've been podcasting for 9 years. Everybody in that room looked at me and he goes, why are you even here?
Podcast Junkies, episode 78. And this is a really good one. This is a really good one. And if you're a first-time listener, you're going to get an amazing kick-ass episode with a crazy, cool, old-school veteran of podcasting. I make him sound like he's super old, but he's not. I mean, relatively speaking, he's just been doing it for such a long time. And when you hear the story of how he got started and why he was meant to do this, then you're going to just get so motivated, so pumped. It's a really touching, fun, exciting, like just, I don't know. I run out of words and adjectives sometimes, but this is one of those that I really, really had a great time with. I felt we could have recorded another couple of hours and I think, he's someone that goes on the short list for a return trip because his stories are crazy. So, it's Danny Peña. Did I mention that? I don't know if I did, but Danny Peña of GamerTagRadio. So, and if you're a new listener, then you might want to get a feel for what this is about before you decide to keep listening. And what we do, and you'll get a great feel for this with this episode, like I mentioned, is just we find fantastic podcast hosts. And I don't have this huge queue of like dozens of people waiting to come on the show because I'm rather picky, I guess you could say, about who I want on and who I feel like I can engage with, because I want you to feel the passion and the fun that I do when I speak to these people. And so I'm always on the lookout, and a lot of it comes from conferences, meeting people in person, face to face, shaking their hand, looking them in the eye, having a beer with them. And I can't wait to do more of that at Podcast Movement this July in Chicago. But yeah, that's what we do. And this episode is a prime example of why I do it and why I take the time to look for someone who's going to have an impact. And there's no doubt that Danny is going to impact you as a result of you hearing this conversation between him and I, which happened recently. Enjoy. All right, man. Danny Peña, it's been a long time coming, but thanks for making the appearance on Podcast Junkies.
Thanks for the invite, man. Thanks for the invite.
I think, we just kind of passing each other, at conferences, and I obviously had heard about you for a long time, so I'm glad in the past couple of months we've been bumping into each other more frequently, and we jumped on that Blab together. And
yes, and honestly, I don't use Blab that much, and that was like maybe my third time jumping in, so that's cool. Cool that there's more platforms now to like start promoting like the podcast and everything, so it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, it was funny. I was getting connected up on Skype, and I was like, because you don't have GamerTagRadio by itself as the Skype ID. So did someone snag that?
No, you know what? That was me that created another account.
Okay.
It was like so long ago, and I can't remember the password. So I'm like, let me just create a new one. So yeah, that was a long time ago. That was my bad. I made a mistake.
So even people think that podcasters, like, they got all the tech like on lockdown and we got it all figured out, but we got all these other things that we can't keep them all working at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
I made plenty of mistakes throughout the years. Like I remember recording an interview and I forgot to press record. And it was like one of the best interviews ever, and I had to re-record that like all over again. But it came out pretty good the second time. But man, that first one was really awesome.
I haven't had the knock on wood, because of course the minute I say that, some like lightning strike is going to happen. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey Danny, remember that thing? We got to talk about it one more time. You're never going to get the emotion. You're never going to get that, like, whatever it was that you were saying. You're all hyped up and you got to like replay it like you're an actor or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but there was one time too that, because we usually record locally, like my whole crew, and one of my crew members, Pete, his recorder, I don't know what happened, like got messed up and it didn't save the file at the end. So I edited in a way that when you listen to the show, he doesn't even exist in that show, like in that episode. So it was only like 3 of us. So every time we mentioned his name, I had to chop that up. You know, it took me forever to edit that out.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, you know. So,
but is everything you're doing with editing like all self-taught?
Yeah. Yep. I did it all myself. I learned, like, since I was a kid, I was always into editing. I started doing that with 2 VCRs back in the 90s. And then I started doing that. Actually 2 VCRs and a mixer. And then after that, I was doing that a lot with cassette players. So my first show in 2001, 'cause I had an internet radio show back then. And that's how I used to edit. Just pause, play with no software, just like that. And then eventually upload it to like a website and stuff, man. So that's how I started back then, man.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're a seriously OG, and congratulations on getting inducted into the Podcasting Hall of Fame. That's pretty
thanks,
awesome.
Man. Thanks.
But man, 2001, man, people weren't even thinking about shit like that, and
at all.
And I thought of doing VCRs. Is that because of the audio quality was the best at that point with a VCR?
No, the VCR was because back in the 80s, my uncle, he was the first person that purchased a video camera within the family. And that motivated me to start editing. And I wanted to create like my own movies. And we done like music videos with my family and stuff and with my cousins. Because we had like 9 cousins in the same school year at high school, during high school. So I used to take video cameras every day. Like now everybody has a smartphone, which has a camera automatically, but back then it was really rare. People would ask me like, why are you always walking around with a video camera at school, at events and everything? So I started editing like that, just pause, play. Then I went to school for tier production and slowly, upgraded, with the software and stuff. So, I think in the early 2000s, that's when I got my first Mac and started learning about like Final Cut Pro and iMovie and GarageBand, all that stuff. So it took some time, but all that was on my own. Learned that on my own.
What about mixtapes? You were putting together any of those back in the day?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, matter of fact, I used to be a DJ too. Like within my cousins, we were had like different DJ names and stuff. But eventually, one of my cousins, he became a really popular DJ back in the 90s here in Miami, Florida. So we were I was more of like the street promoter. Like I was always out promoting house parties. And then eventually we upgraded to like clubs. And then record labels started hitting me up. And I worked with a lot of music artists back then. I don't know if you heard of DJ Khaled. He's like a famous DJ now. He's really, really big. He has a show now on Apple Music, Beats One.
Yeah.
On Fridays and stuff. And I known him before he even blew up. A matter of fact, a couple of days ago, he was at, during the Super Bowl, he DJed for like a tournament that EA Sports had in San Francisco, because they usually do that during Super Bowl weekend. He was like one of the main DJs and stuff there. So He's like a really big DJ. So yeah, I worked with him, worked with like Wyclef, Keras One, a lot of hip hop artists back in the days and stuff. So that's how I learned how to promote like in the streets. Nowadays people are depending so much on like Twitter and everything. For me, all those skills that I learned from back then, I took advantage of that and started doing that for the podcast. So I will go to like a local store like GameStop or Best Buy. There's a bunch of gamers lined up waiting for a game to come out at midnight. So I'll take my recorder, start recording them, like, hey, why are you buying this game? And so on. And then I'll pass out flyers. Every single person pass out flyers. And I was doing that everywhere locally in Miami. And then eventually the word just went around about our podcast and stuff. So I know nowadays nobody's doing that at all. But it's cool to do that, man, because I feel that it's so important to meet the listeners face to face. Find your community. Like I've always been saying that since day one. That's powerful to me. Instead of depending on like different platforms like iTunes and all this stuff. It's cool. It's great for those that they can't meet you in person, but meeting people in person, I think is powerful to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people lose track of connecting with their listeners, and you did it on such a personal level. It's crazy. I mean, most podcasters wouldn't even think of something like that. I mean, you were like the original street team for podcasting. I grew up in New York City, so you'd have the street team.
Me too. I'm from New York too. I'm from New York. I'm really born and raised in New York.
What part?
Manhattan.
Yeah, I grew up in Yonkers.
Oh, Yonkers. Nice.
So you see the street teams, they totally take over a block, and then they take the light poles, and they staple the double-sided album promos. So every time, like, Sean Combs, like Puff Daddy's, like, was like one of the originators of like just the mass marketing, like street team stuff. Get him out there, and I think it was effective because that was like all over the place, all over.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
I tell people this, like, I'm really into hip hop music and hip hop culture. So like back in the 70s and the early 80s when hip hop wasn't even mainstream, rappers, like, let's say they go to a house party, people record like live DJing or MC battles, or record it on cassette, and then eventually they'll give it to like their cousins they're visiting from like London or from other places, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. They'll just give copies. Remember, this is pre-internet days. And look, now everybody knows about hip hop music, is really mainstream. It just went around, and when I want to promote the podcast, I always think about that. Like I feel that it's important to learn the history about podcasts. Like, like I went to the awards, the podcast, not podcast awards, but the Academy of Podcasters at Podcast Movement. Yeah. And like I noticed a lot of people didn't know who Adam Curry is, Todd Cochran. They don't know me. That, what I'm saying? So I feel that it's important. Like, yeah, it's cool to know everybody's doing their thing now, making their money and everything. It's cool, but it's important to learn the history, like, of those that really put in and made this podcast even better. Learn from us, and make it even better. So that's like something that is really, really important to me. So I'm trying my best to, like, when I start like doing presentations, I always talk about how I did it, because I want people to visualize, like, look, there was no internet. I was strictly doing this word of mouth, no Twitter. It was just forums. I even had an Angel Fire website back then, so I don't know if you heard about mp3.com.
Yeah.
But mp3.com at that time, when I started, it was only for music artists. So every time someone will stream their music, mp3.com will pay them. So I was the first person to create a show, an internet radio show, where people could download it or stream on the website. And my first check ever back in 2001 was $500.
Wow.
$500. So imagine now a podcaster now in 2016 getting that check for the first time. Like, man, I made it. This is me in 2001. And I was like, man, I want to start a business out of this, man. Like, I'm thinking beyond, like, man, this is worldwide. This is not no local stuff, because the internet is powerful. It's everywhere, Yeah. So, yeah, I mentioned that to people. They get like shocked. They're like, really? $500? 2001? I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah, most podcasters would go crazy for $500 right about now.
Hell yeah. I mean, now there's so many different ways to get money. Like, to me, money comes and goes. Like, to me, it's more important about the community part, because I'm always like giving back to our listeners, our community and stuff. And but hey, if there's an opportunity for you to get money, go for yours, man. You just do it the right way. That's not gonna kill the space. It's not gonna give us a bad name. Like, I feel that there's podcasters nowadays that like to take advantage of the new guys, the new people that are trying to do their own thing too. And I think it's wrong, because then it's going to discourage them to not even do this anymore, and at the same time, giving out fake numbers or download numbers or Twitter bombing. Like, to me, that's just like, it's so tacky, so tacky. So
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, back home, be like, yo, that shit is so ghetto.
Yeah, it is. It is, man.
Come, it's like, it almost shows like they don't have trust in their own ability to generate an audience, and they don't have, any faith in their own skills to be like, no, like I'm gonna like however long it takes, to get to 10,000, to get to 50,000, to get to 100,000, a million, however long it is. If you're in it for the long haul, then you realize it's just gonna be ups and downs, and you just got to keep trying new things like you've been doing, for 10 years plus.
It's the same thing as an MC. When they're on stage, they got to move the crowd, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with us podcasters. We're moving the crowd too in a different way. So if you don't have the voice to make that happen, then to me personally, like it's like, yo, just drop the mic and just, But like I went on stage to the awards at Podcast Movement and stuff, and the first time I was on stage, it was because of the Hall of Fame award. I got really emotional. Like I was going everywhere at that time, right? So then the second time, I was still emotional. Like I just didn't want to show it to the crowd, but I hyped the crowd. Like I was like, all right, everybody say Podcast Movement. Like, and everybody said the same thing. And then I was so focused on that I totally forgot to mention the name of the category that I was presenting. I was like, all right, the nominees are. And I noticed that they didn't show anything on the screen. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to mention the the category. But like little things like that, like look, the majority of those people, I think like 90% of those people never heard of me, never heard of GamerTagRadio, unless you're like a hardcore podcaster that did your research and stuff. But I made them say those words that came out of my mouth. Like, I want you to say this, and they said it. So I feel that we could do the same exact thing and motivate people to do so many different things through a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I grew up DJ. I've been DJing for like 20 years, more like house music. So, but I got my 1200s.
This reminds me of the Boogie Down Bronx, Bronx with the house music and everything.
See, you can see in the back, I still got my.
Oh, nice. I still have vinyls. I have records and stuff. I used to DJ a lot of like, the techniques. And, and I know a lot of DJs. There's one DJ. Sorry, I cut you off or something. There's one DJ that I know. His name is DJ Craze. He's the #1 DJ from around the world. He competed in this competition called DMC.
Yeah.
He won so many times they made him retired from that because people couldn't even beat him at all. Every year. And they're like, please just stop, let others shine. So I love that, man. And that's before the whole bringing your own laptop to the club and connecting to the turntables. This is like the days that we used to go every Wednesday night. We used to go to South Beach and just pick up records from labels or like independent artists. Like we had like a little meetup of different DJs locally from Miami, and they were like, hey, look, I have this brand new song here, play it, your mixtape or radio, whatever. Because in the 90s, pirate stations were really popular here in Miami too. So I should do that once in a while. That's like one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own show, because of the whole pirate radio stations back then in Miami and stuff. So yeah, little things like that. But I love vinyls. I still have my first Nas album.
Oh, nice.
On vinyl. I have like a lot of old school underground vinyls from Miami, Florida too. So
yeah, it was fun. It used to be fun, man. You just go there and other people would be looking for the vinyl, and you literally could spend like half a day, the whole day maybe sometimes, just digging through the crates and just pulling out stacks of vinyl, taking them over to the turntable, getting the headphones on, listening to them, sampling them, like, yeah, this one's good, this one's good. And there's something about that selection process where your ear becomes better and better. I drop the needle on like 3 parts of the record, and I'm like, no, I don't. That's not good. It's not a good track, right? And then now it's digital. So like if you want a file, you can go to like Beatport and like, oh yeah, you download 10 songs at one time, man. And I think there's something lost in our ability to discern like what really is good versus what sounds okay, but it's just a click away, so I'm just going to do it,
Yeah, definitely. The other day, not going to mention her name, but the other day I went to this event of a hip hop producer that passed away like 10 years ago. So every year they have this event for charity in Miami and other cities too. So they were here in Miami this past weekend. So I got to meet like a lot of hip hop artists. And one of my boys did a mixtape about that producer. So he gave me a CD. And then the other day, a friend of mine, she was like, "Oh, I would like to get a copy." I was like, "Yo, here." So I gave her a CD. I'm like, "Look, make a copy and give it back to me whenever you get the chance." She's young. She's like in her early 20s and stuff, right? Yeah. And she didn't know how to rip a CD. I was like, "Oh my God, wait a minute. Like, this is the generation now that they're not really used to that stuff at all." You know? So
it's all digital, man.
Yeah, it's all digital. So when she didn't say anything to me because she was probably embarrassed to say something. So she got to see the CD. She was like, okay. And then she couldn't figure out how to burn it. So I had to explain to her, like, no, go to iTunes, on your computer and all this stuff. It's crazy, man.
Well, it's funny. Like my friend got the new MacBook Pro, and I was checking it out. It's like 2015. There's no DVD, CD.
I have the same one. There's no DVD. Yeah, none of that.
So it's like, you just think about. I mean, that used to be futuristic, like a CD or DVD was, like, but now even that is like gone. And he doesn't even have an Ethernet port on the new ones. I think you got.
Oh, really? Well, the one that I have it has that.
Yeah, you got to do Lightning or you got to do converter or something like that. So I was like, they're assuming everyone's going to be on Wi-Fi. So just, I mean, we're moving to the point where it's just going to be a chip in your head and
Skynet right there, Skynet. It's crazy.
So when did you make the move from New York City to Miami?
Back in '92.
Yeah.
I used to live in Dominican Republic, by the way. I lived there. My parents were from there, so I lived there for 4 years, and I had like a little, kind of like an arcade place because my mom helped me out with that. I had a bunch of like Super Nintendos and a bunch of Sega Genesis, and I got my friend to get a lot of TVs. So we set up an area where people could go and pay me $5 or $10 for them to play all my games. Like I said, since back then, I always wanted to do always want to create like my own business out of the whole video game stuff. I just couldn't figure out what it was. And then eventually, the whole podcasting eventually happened and everything. But so I lived there. And then in '92, I moved here a month right after Hurricane Andrew. So when I came to Miami, it was like, oh my God, it was like a disaster around here, man.
Wow.
Ugly. Oh my God. Houses was destroyed, trees everywhere still, like wasn't 100%. It was getting better slowly, so because my cousins, they lived here since the late 80s. They're originally from New York too, from my father's side. So I just love the weather and everything down here, and came here in 1992. You
still get the weather reports from people back in New York, man?
Oh yeah. I mean, I go to New York a lot. Like I travel a lot. My mom still lives in New York. My brothers and sisters, so I always go there and visit them, visit my whole family from both my father and my mom's side. So I go there a lot. I don't miss the cold weather. I don't miss the whole snow. I don't miss that at all. Like I'm fine where I'm at right now. Like right now it's cold, but it's not. It's not like below zero or anything like that. Yeah. Like it's like in the late 40s, high 40s and low 50s and stuff. So, that's what's going on down here.
No, I'm in LA now. So and we've been here 2 years. My wife and I moved, and I was talking to my brother, and he's like, "It's 13 degrees here and snowing." I'm like, "It's 75 degrees here and sunny."
I go to LA a lot, especially in June. I'll go there for E3. It's like a big convention where video game companies are basically promoting their products, where it's coming out like during the holiday season or the year after that. So we go there every single year. I've been going there now it's going to be my 11th year this year going there. And I go there to like record interviews and I get to play these games before it comes out and stuff. And that's how I build relationships, just attending events. Now companies are contacting us like to travel around the world. Last year, I went to Sweden. I was like one of the first 20 people around the world. I was the only podcaster. Everybody was like YouTuber, live streamer that we got to see the new Star Wars game.
Wow.
at their studio, and it wasn't me. They didn't want us to do like interviews or anything like that. It was more of feedback, like, hey, how can we make this game better? What you guys think? And the reason is because we're very influential in the video game community. So that's why a lot of video game companies are always like inviting us to an event. So then after that, not years, but months later, two of my co-hosts also went to London for another game, Assassin's Creed. I don't know if you've heard of. So they went there to London for a week just to play Assassin's Creed, just to interview with the developers, and they showed them that basically took them on tour, like the whole area in London and stuff. So throughout the years, we've been traveling a lot, and the reason is because us attending events, us building relationship with people, it helped us get our name out there. I feel that recording at home is not enough. You have to attend events. If you really, really taking this serious, I mean, if you're doing this for fun, you don't want to travel, that's fine. But if you want to take it to the next level, I think that traveling to whatever it is, if you're into comics, go to a convention or a meetup, something that has to do with comics. Like for us, video games, we'll go to every show, almost all of them, that deals with video games.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be the go-to resource for anything in the video game industry, and you want to be known, and like you said, there's stuff that you guys broke on your show first time. You have to be literally with where the action's at, and the video game industry, man, that changes so fast. Like new innovations, new technologies, new games, and new companies coming on board. Like you literally have to have your finger on the pulse of what's happening all the time.
And here's the thing too, I love iTunes. It's a great platform. We've been there for years. But I don't depend on that. I'm depending on our content and our community. Is the community liking our content? Are they spreading the word? I feel that podcasters are so stuck on the whole, oh, my podcast is a new Noteworthy. It's cool if you're there, props to you. But after that, what are you going to do? Try to get there again? And the thing is that they don't know is that Apple pick those shows and they manually put it up there. It's not based on hits or anything like that. They feel like, hey, this person created a podcast, let's put it there. Like, let's get them excited about the platform, But with us, I've been interviewing so many people, and before iTunes even added podcasts to the platform, we've been everywhere. Like major websites, even CNN and like Forbes and all these places, and we were never featured front page for 10 plus years. And it was the 10th year, finally iTunes put us up on the front page, So the way how we build our name was attending events, building relationship, and just connecting with our community. They're basically our street team.
Yeah.
They're the ones spreading the word to their friends and family. And my job is I want our podcast to be entertaining. If we're mess up, let us know. We'll fix it. We'll get better throughout, through time and stuff. But that's all I've been doing, just spreading the word about our content like that, So
yeah, it's funny because I was listening to a couple of episodes when you were talking with the team about, oh, we've been nominated. Oh, I'm going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then they played your acceptance speech, and I thought it was interesting because some things that I took away were how much you look back and you felt was important to call out like everyone that helped you get to where you are, and I think you, if I remember correctly, you called out like one of the first people who ever made a comment or supported the show way back in the beginning.
Oh, in the beginning was before I thank my family, my girlfriend, they've been there since day one, I thank our listeners. And I was the only podcaster that got nominated and also inducted to the Hall of Fame. I was the only podcaster that invited listeners locally that live in the Texas, Dallas area, Fort Worth. I told them, hey, there was, I think we were going to have like 10 or 12 that were going to attend the event, but due due to like jobs and stuff like that, I couldn't attend. So a couple attended, and I took them to the red carpet. I took pictures with them. I wanted them to learn about podcasts. So I took them to different companies. Like I wanted them to learn about Libsyn and Blueberry and different mics and audio equipment, because maybe this will help them to start their own podcast, And I did that. I sat on the front row with them, and they were the first people that I thanked, And honestly, if it's not for your listeners, how are you going to get your downloads? So I did that just to give thanks and give back. I think to me that's so important. So we can't forget about that. We can't just depend so much on just spamming online and depending so much on iTunes and all this stuff. And also I feel that people are depending too much on interviewing other successful podcasters. Way too much. It's cool, but I would like to learn more about you too. I want to learn about you. So with us in our show, people know us because they've been listening to us for a very long time. So yeah, I have interviews, big interviews on our podcast, but I want people to know about me. So
no, it's so important, man. And I think I love the perspective that you bring, because you've got so many years of doing this, and you've demonstrated that the way that it's worked for you is to care about the listener from day one, and to always include them in the back of your mind. Dave Jackson, School of Podcasting, is like I think he said he even has a picture of like his avatar on a wall, and it's like, who's my listener? I'm talking to them, and they're always like the other person in the room, and I'm keeping them. I want to produce content that includes them, or that that they would like, and then also to be yourself, because I think now everyone's trying to portray this perfect image of a podcaster and all buttoned up and stuff, and when you listen to that, man, it just doesn't seem authentic.
It sounds fake to me. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm being real right now. It just sounds sounds totally so fake, man. So, like with us, when you listen to the show, that's us. We don't fake the funk. We're not faking it at all. If we make mistakes, we make mistakes. We just leave it there, or I'll edit it out. But at least I'm showing people like this is us. Like I don't change at all. Because when they see me in person, like, hey, you're not like that at all when I listen to your show. So when I travel, I try my best to meet up other listeners in different cities. So I went to New York for vacation. I just wanted to hang out with my mom and my family. And I decided, like, you know what? I'm going to pick one day to meet up with some of the listeners in New York City. So I talked about it on our podcast. I didn't want to invite a lot of people, So I was like, all right, let me get like a small group, get together in downtown, like on 31st Street. We went to a bar. We were watching like some sports game. I think it was football. I can't remember exactly what it was. But we were just talking, and there's people that they don't post on Twitter. They never been on Instagram. They are not like on social media at all. But they emailed me because they heard me saying, man, a Gamer Tag Radio, we're going to have a meetup in New York City. So I was like, all right, come to this location, and I got them food, drinks. We were just having a great time. And I was just asking them questions like, tell us how we could do better. What is it that you like about our show? What is it that you don't like? And they were just being real. And I was like, all right, thanks. And after that, man, they were just like, please, let's take pictures. I'm like, all right, we took pictures. And they're never going to forget that.
No.
At all. They're going to be like saying, man, this guy is so cool. Man, this is like a great experience. I'm going to tell the people about your show. Like that's going to motivate them even more to spread the word about the podcast, So still to this day, they hit me up saying hi. And I try my best to talk to every single person that contacts us, like via email, voicemail, social media. Sometimes we're not 100% on point with that, but I think that's so important to me.
That's interesting because part of it is like you're Latino and I'm Latino, so that culture is kind of like we like engaging with people. I think we're more social type people, so I don't know if you attribute it to part of that being why you're like that, or is there some other aspect of like maybe
That's part of it.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Or is it how you were raised?
Yeah, it's like my parents. Like two things about my parents. Like they hard worker, and a lot of Latino parents are like that too. I worked my butt off when it comes to the podcast and stuff, but at the same time, like my mom raised me like this. My first time, I remember walking with my girlfriend the street. We were dating, like just on a date, and I didn't want her to. When we were walking the sidewalk, I didn't want her to be close to the street, so I put her like on the side, and I was closer to the street. You know, and the reason why I was doing that, she found out that we were like, wow, I'm not used to that. Usually the people that she dated in the past, they don't do that, you know? So the reason why I do that is because back then, you know, like our parents, when they used to live in like in El Campo, you know, in the mountains and stuff, right? Guys used to do that. They'll put the females on the side from the street because when there was like a puddle, they didn't want like somebody either in the car or from a horse or whatever for them to just spill them with water and everything, you know? So I was like, man, I'm gonna start doing that because that to me that's like being very gentleman,
yeah.
you know? So little things like that, just the way how they raised me. Like I don't go to my aunt's house and open the fridge. Like I'm not I'm not like that, you know. My mom and my dad, they raised me right, you know. So the things that I learned from them on the way I am with people socially, the way how I am like work wise with my show and everything, all that was because of my parents, you know. So yeah, I think it's important, man, and you're right. I think it's part of our culture, like and from the Latino side, we've been raised when it comes to that stuff, you know. So
yeah, it's funny. I you know, when I was dating as well, I remember doing the same exact thing, and I heard the same exact story about, you know, but it was like, yeah, it's back in the day, you know, like, you know, just whatever olden times, you know, the cars, the streets would be all messed up, there'd be puddles and stuff. So, you know, I don't think I ever actually threw down my jacket over a puddle like that.
Oh no, not like that. No, I will not do that.
I see that on TV shows. I'm like, did people like really do that? That's crazy, man.
Yeah. So little things like that. And here's a crazy thing, man. Like when I was in kindergarten, I used to be the shyest person, man. So this is the reason why I changed. You know, like, yeah, last year I was speaking to 1,000+ people at Podcast Movement. But let me tell you, when I was in kindergarten, I had a presentation. Not a presentation, but like it was a show. The parents were there. Every kid was a letter. So my letter was H, right? I never talked about this. This is the first time. So my letter was H. So they were calling the kid, a person, that go to the mic and come up with a sentence with that letter, right? So they called my name, and my parents was there. Yo, it was that theater was packed. They call my name. All right, Danny, the letter H. And I'm like, nope, I'm not getting up. And I was looking at my parents, and they were so disappointed.
Oh,
so disappointed. Like, why are you doing this? And I was the only kid from that group that said no. I didn't want to get up. I was just too embarrassed, too shy. So once after the event finished and we went home, you know, I got to see my mom and my dad. They of course they supported me, but they were just disappointed. Like, man, you had an opportunity to go up and say something on the mic and you didn't. And every other kid did. So I thought about it. I'm like, that's it. I'm never going to be shy again. After that, I was just like this, on point, just talking to everybody, doing presentations. Like I was not shy at all, you know? So that was like, to me, that's like one of my highlights of like in my life. That made me change big time. Big.
That's such a pivotal moment because it's the moment like when you found your voice.
Basically, yes.
It's crazy.
Basically, yeah, it is. And not only that, it's just like that and seeing my uncle with a video camera for the first time. And It's just me being curious how to edit. It was just a combination of everything. And also my grandmother giving me my first video game console, the Atari 2600 back in the 80s. All that changed my life completely. Changed my life. So I'm going to be speaking at PowFest in a couple of weeks. I don't know when this is going to go up or not, but I'm going to be speaking, and I know everybody's going to be talking about marketing and all that stuff. It's cool. There's going to be a group of people that they just love that stuff, But to me, like, I just want to show people I'm just being real. I'm showing you a video. Like, I have old videos from like the 80s and 90s about my life, and just pictures, and just show them the things that we did. Actually, I did, and then eventually GamerTagRadio, my whole crew and everything throughout the years. I just want to show them, like, look, think different. Just be you, instead of this whole too much of this marketing stuff. Like, I feel that if you just be you, I feel that your podcast will be successful, and it will just go around, and people are going to love it. Because the person listening to you, they feel that we're friends. We're like, they're their friends, and they're going to be telling other people, like, look, man, this is a great podcast, man. I feel like they're part of my life. They're my friend. Look, it's just a group of people just talking about games, So that's my goal of, like, this is going to be like my first opening keynote. So it took me like a good month to actually like set this up and everything. So I can't wait. Like, I can't wait to see like reaction of people, because I have some stuff there. Like, I'm even taking my first cassette where I recorded my first show ever.
Wow.
And I'm going to show them, like, look, forget about expensive equipment and spending so much stuff on that. Just do it. When I did my podcast, I did it out of love, and I recorded on a built-in mic on my computer. Before that, I was doing everything on tape recorder, on tape decks, and eventually people at that time appreciate that, and they don't care about your expensive mic and none of that stuff. To them, it's the content, in my opinion. So sorry if I went way too long on that part.
No, man, I love those stories, man. I think they tell you a little bit about, what it is that drives you, because they hear your enthusiasm, and Danny Peña is like, been, killing it for the past 10 years, but there's this fire right inside of you. And that fire comes from like this years and years and years of like, just you wanting to be an authentic voice, and it's just be consistent. And like, and starting with that tape deck and starting with that cassette is like, I'm going to do this by hook or by crook. I don't care how ghetto it sounds. I'm going to MacGyver the shit out of this and just make it happen, and get on the mic. And I got a voice. And I think it even goes back to that kindergarten incident where, what your parents were probably, trying to communicate to you, like, hey, you got an opportunity here to like let your voice be heard. And if you don't like let people hear your voice, you're almost like depriving them of like your message. And I felt like, maybe that's what they were trying to communicate to you. And that's what their disappointment was, like, man, you had a chance. We don't all get a spotlight, and we never know how long that spotlight's going to last. But when they give it to you, take it, man, take it and run with it. And I got a feeling like that's sort of what they were trying to communicate to you at that point.
Yeah, man, that completely changed my life. Completely. Just the combination of that, and my grandmother supporting me and buying me a little video game console, and like, just a combination of all that stuff through my life. Like, I feel like this is me. This is me. Look where I'm at now. This is my show. This is my content, and I was never thinking of business or download numbers or none of that, not even expensive equipment. I was just like, I want to talk to my community. I just want to talk to friends. Just release the content and see what happens from there. And it worked out. My first show, when the first episode that came out, the show was called PSO Radio. It was Fantasy Star Online. It was about a game that, at that time, Sega released this console, It was a 56K modem, but it was the console that you will play online for the first time. Everything through 56K, everything. So instead of voice chatting, we were just typing. We would connect our keyboard and just chat, right? So I decided, like, all right, I want to create a show about that game and just talk about it. You know, I want to talk about like our issues. I want Sega to make some changes. There's ways for us to play the Japanese servers. I'm going to talk about that, like how to hack and all that stuff. And I recorded my first episode. Remember, this is like pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook, all that. And I don't know how it happened, but major news sites picked it up. Wow, this a Fantasy Star radio show online. It wasn't even called podcast. It was, check it out. And it just went around. And I never hit them up to post that, you know? So now throughout these years, every time we record something or record an interview or something like that, it just goes around, and it's shocking. You never know who's listening to you. You never know who's listening to your show, you know? So don't feel discouraged. Like, oh, nobody's listening. Trust me, there's somebody that you probably don't know. They don't use Twitter. They don't use Facebook. And they're going to be the ones that are just going to spread the word, and they are the ones that are going to make you a star, you know? So I always think about that, man. Like, you never know who's listening. The thing is just gonna go out, and eventually other people are gonna discover you because of that other person that heard your show. You know, so
yeah, it's just a function of being like consistently passionate. And when people hear that in your voice, man, you can't fake that, man. They just like, they hear it and they're like, oh, that's him. He's crazy about it. They hear it. I mean, I'm sure they can hear it right now as you describe with such detail about like this console that doesn't even exist, about, you know, 56K, which, you know, that's even pre-CD. Like, you can't even.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Like, it was 14.4, then it was the 33.6, and then I think it was the 56K. So it was just crazy times back then. And when you were doing it, we watch a movie like War Games and be like, oh my God, like that 9-inch floppy disk or so, whatever. Like,
yeah. But here's the craziest thing, man. You know, because of the love of video games, this is like 2 months after 9/11, I went to. I created a second show. Matter of fact, I forgot to mention that. I created a second show called Game Boys, and this show was not about just one game. Now it's about just video game in general. So at that time, Nintendo and Microsoft, they're releasing their new consoles in 2001. So I heard that they were going to come to New York City, promote their console. They wanted the fans to jump in, check out like their games and console at different venues. So the first week was Microsoft. So I went there with a video camera, tape recorder, and I went there with my brother. So I went to the event, and I started. It was a 48-hour competition. I forgot to mention. So whoever had the most points at the end of the 48 hours get a free trip to Cancun, free car, free everything. They were giving away a bunch of stuff. So I went there, video camera, tape recorder. And I went up to Microsoft, like, hey, is it possible for me to get a badge, a media badge, because I want to interview your staff, everyone for the show. They're like, sure. They just gave me a badge. I'm like, oh my God, no business card, nothing. Just gave it to me. I'm like, all right. So I was walking around the whole time for 48 hours with my video camera and my tape recorder. And I got to meet the creators of Xbox, the original members and stuff. And I was there for 40 hours with my brother. And then at the same time, I was also playing. Yeah. So at the end of the 48 hours, out of 1,000+ people, only 15 of us stayed for 48 hours. And they took us to like a little room. And they were like, hey, we're going to give you guys a free console. No, it's not coming out till like 3 weeks from now. But this is like a thank you from us to you. And I just stayed with my mouth open, like, oh my God, is this for real? So then a week later, I went to Nintendo, and I the same exact thing. Interviewed Nintendo, the fans that were lined up, all that stuff. They didn't give away no consoles. So then a couple of days later after that, I get a call from Microsoft, and they were like, Danny, we're gonna have a big video game launch about our console at Times Square in New York City. Would you like to come? I'm like, sure, I'll go. Plus, they wanted us to talk about the console to the media, like New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, major media. So I'm like, all right. So this was at this place, Toys R Us. I don't know if you've been there in Times Square.
Yeah.
At that time, it was still under construction, so Microsoft had to get special permission from the city of New York for them to have this event. So they were having this event with WWE. The Rock was hosting across the street. They had a restaurant. They were there too and everything. So I went to Toys R Us, and one of the creators of Xbox came up to us and he was like, "Hey, you guys are ready for this?" We're like, yeah, I'm ready. All right, you guys are gonna meet Bill Gates. So just so please don't give your resume to him. Just go there, and we want you to play Xbox with him. We're gonna record this, everything. What? And I was like, "Yo, am I living a dream? Like, this is for real?" And this is like, what?
Wow.
So I went, dude. I went there and I started playing with him. Like, there's pictures online. You will find me. Like, if you want, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
There's pictures. And even I found a video by mistake. I found it of us actually playing with Bill Gates from 2001.
Oh, so yeah, definitely send that. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, like I went there and yeah, I had a tape recorder with me in my pocket. And I'm like, man, because the media was interviewing Bill Gates. I'm like, let me try to take advantage and ask Bill Gates some questions. So I took my tape recorder and I started recording. And I asked him questions too. He's like, yeah, he was answering. So his PR looked at me like, yo, this kid is for real? She came, took my recorder, grabbed my cassette, and gave my recorder back and kept the cassette. And I was like, oh my God. I recorded so many interviews with that, and I basically lost everything. Like, everything gone.
Yeah.
But that picture, every time I tell people that story, they bugged out. Like, you were actually hanging out with a freaking billionaire. And I'm like, yeah, look, it was just me attending events, and I didn't know what was going to happen. It just happened, So my advice for those that are listening to this podcast, like, I feel that if there's an opportunity for you to go to like an event, do it. Go for it. You never know what could happen. Opportunities might pop up. People are going to meet you. They're going to learn about your podcast. They're going to learn about you. So when you go attend other events, oh, it's so-and-so. I remember this person, And the reason how we met, kind of, not actually, we haven't met like in an event, but you heard about me and I heard about you was because of Podcast Movement. Yeah. Or other. I know you said you heard about me before that too, but like little things like that, I feel that it's so important, man. Just get out of your house. Get out and just attend events. Look for your community. You do that, and your podcast is gonna go around.
Oh man, that's such awesome advice, and I definitely think people don't do it enough. I think they're so comfortable, like in their room recording their episodes, and like you said, maybe they're just doing it as a hobby. But if you want longevity and you want to interact with your tribe, we do it at Podcast Movement with other podcasters. We geek out on everything like downloads and microphones and all this other stuff. But I think the best part for me is the hallways, the conversations, and being just we sometimes it's like family at this point, right? You just you see people you haven't seen for a year, and then just like the 3 days go by so fast, and just find other opportunities. There's meetups, local meetups as well. I'm part of a couple of local meetups here in LA for podcasting, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, just get involved with those people, because I think that's really where the true, and without an intention of like trying to get something from the other person, like just go to connect like a human being, to go have a beer with somebody or whatever it is. And then, just that's it, with no anticipation of like something else needs to come out of it. Because I think too many people are in like, I need to pick your brain, and I need to like get some, help. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And you can smell those people from like a mile away.
Oh, yeah. Look, I during Podcast Movie, I met a lot of people. Like Elsie, I known her for years. We were talking for so long. I was always going to like video game events. She was going to podcast events. And I went to Podcast Movement. And I went to her session, like I went to her C podcast session that she had. It was only for females and stuff. But I went inside there because I wanted to give her a hug. I'm like, I known her for years, and she was in shock, like, oh my God, Danny! Like we hugged each other, like things like that, or like the day before the awards, I got together with Rob Greenlee. Like I known him for years too. Dave Jackson. Like I heard about him, but I never met him. But I listened. I downloaded like his podcast and stuff, and I love his podcast, School Podcast.
Yeah.
And it was us and other people too that were there. Was so many. So we went to the bar, and Dave Jackson and we had man. I wish we had a recorder, man. Like it was like the deepest conversation, man. Like I heard him talking about that at other shows. He's like, dude, man, me and Danny, we had this great conversation. Man, I wish we had a recorder. Dude, it was so deep, man. Like we talked about everything, and I told him a little bit about myself and my story, and I think that by me doing that, telling other people my story, I think that's the reason why I got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Because, I went to this South Florida meetup group here, all podcasters and stuff. So I went there, and I was quiet, sat down, didn't say a word. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Like, So Jared Easley, one of the co-founders of the podcast movement, he's like, hey, all right, everybody introduce yourself. And how many years you been podcasting, right? So everybody's like, oh, I just started. Some of them were like, oh, I'm planning to launch later this year. Some people were like, oh, 2-3 years or 4, when it came to me, and I was like, oh, I've been doing this. It's going to be 9 years. This is like years ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've been podcasting for 9 years. Everybody in that room looked at me, and he goes, why are you even here? And I was like, no, because I want to meet other podcasters. Like I'm involved with the community. Why not? And everybody thanked me. Thank you for coming. So, and at the end, it was like, any questions to Danny? He's been doing this for 9 years. Danny, please give some advice. Like, what is that recorder you have? Like, what is that? Like little things like that. I was like, oh my God. But then one day he was like, hey, Danny, I would love to hear your story. Can you give us a presentation about you? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I've never done a presentation about podcasts. Like, I've done stuff like for other things, right?
Yeah.
So I went there a little bit nervous. I'm like, because I wasn't comfortable with it. I was like, oh, let me just do it. And I did a presentation, and everybody stayed with their mouth open and were like, dude, are you serious? I go, yeah. I showed them the people that I interviewed, where we were featured. I was like, look, we never been on like the front page of iTunes. Like I mentioned all that stuff. And they were like, oh my God, really? And I think somebody recorded that. And I think Jared shared that. This is me, I think. I think he shared it with his crew, podcast movement, and everything.
Yeah.
And they did more research about me, and they were like, man, this guy deserved an award, man. Like us, we've been nominated every single year for the podcast awards since 2006, and we've never gotten an award ever. So that award to me was special because at least somebody finally like, man, these guys have been doing it for so long. Let's give them props. And to me, that award is not only for me, but it's also for my crew, everybody that were part of us since day one, and also our listeners, my community, So, I think it's important to just tell people about you, man. Like I did that, and eventually just went around and finding other people like, man, this guy's been doing it for a long time, And there's other podcasters that I feel that they're not getting their props, Like I feel like Rob Greenlee, to me, is like he was like in the same position as me, man, doing internet radio before podcasts, And I feel like, man, I wish he could get an award too, like that. Dave Jackson, Rob Walsh at Lipson.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other people I can name on top of the head, but like little things like that. Like I know my history about podcasts, and I feel that other people should do the same thing and just learn from us, learn from our mistakes, learn from the things that we did, and maybe you could make it even better. And I want everybody to succeed, man, because at every presentation I've done, I always mention this. Like, I want podcasters to be better than me because I want the space to grow. And when the doors open for one person, like other people are going to get that same opportunity too.
That's so important what you say. Like, I want other podcasters to be better than me. is what you're doing there is you're demonstrating that there's this pie is like big enough for everyone. Like
of course.
you don't have to like put other people down to raise yourself up, and there's so much here that's available that like you're not going to give anything away of like your secret sauce or who you are. Like it's not going to hurt your show at all if you educate like the new generation. And I think having that mindset is, it's what sets you apart from like all the other folks who come and they think they can podcast and they realize it's not for them, and or they just try to be someone else on the mic. And I think that's part of, I imagine, why you've had success, is because you're never afraid to share what you've learned and to see people that, sometimes you see people that succeed and they get even bigger than you, and you're just like, yeah, bravo, man. You like applaud them and just like go for it, man.
Look, man, like us, we're good. I'm happy where we're at. I'm not changing. I'm still the same. And I always try my best to give back when I can, and I feel that there's some podcasters that get a little gassed up and their personality change. That's not right, man. That's not right. And eventually listeners are going to notice.
Yeah.
Listeners are way too smart nowadays, nowadays. So, yeah, man, just get back, man. Like, last year was like the greatest year ever for us. It was 10 years. First time iTunes put us on the front page twice last year. CBS contacted us and we signed a deal with them a week before our 10th anniversary, and we made that announcement a week before our 10th anniversary, and everybody was like, what? And we were being patient. Other podcasters do the same thing, man. Stop with the whole like, I need to see numbers now. Like, I've been podcasting for a week. Give it time, man. Give it time. Be patient, man. Be really, really patient. Things are eventually, opportunities are gonna come, but it all depends on you. Depends on you.
Yeah, a lot of podcasters don't want to hear that.
Oh no, they want to see results like now. And I tell people, look, man, 10 plus years, man. Look at this. Look at all the stuff that's been going on. Like us, we signed a deal with CBS, and they love us. CBS, the whole Play team, they love us. We're in the top of their network. We're right there, up there with Taz and Ric Flair and 60 Minutes and all these other podcast shows that are there. They're everybody been cool with us too, man. So, and that is because us just going out and just work and not giving up and being patient. And at the same time, we're having fun with this. The day that I'm not having fun, that's the day I'm just gonna drop the mic and just walk away.
Talk a little bit about how you put the crew together, because you started this on your own, and then the chemistry is pretty tight. From the episodes that I've listened to for the guys that you got. But tell me the story of how that came together.
Well, throughout the years, we've been having a lot of different hosts and different staff members that joined the team, and here's the crazy thing. I met all of them through Xbox Live, which is an online service where people could go and play games online with other people and stuff. So I met a lot of them through playing games online and stuff. And then eventually I just got this vibe. Like, I'm very picky on who to get to join the team. And some of them I met because of, they went to our website. We had like a forum website, and they were like, they were really active within the community and stuff. And yeah, just eventually got people like that. See, like me, I'm a horrible webmaster. Horrible. Like I can't web design at all. But because of me talking to people, I met this girl. Her name is Anna. Her nickname is Miss Irie. So it was her, me, and my brother that we started this whole thing. So with her, she designed our website. It was like looking professional and everything. And every week she was on our show, every week with us. And then eventually I got to meet other people. And then Patrick, which he's still on with us, still to this day. I met him because I had a giveaway, and I was giving away a basketball game, and he won. So I gave it to him. He was like, "Hey, Danny, I would love to submit a review so you could post on your website." I'm like, yeah, sure. And I loved it so much. I'm like, man, I would love to have him on the podcast. You know, he's very active within the community. So he joined eventually. And then also this other girl, her name is Mandy. We met her at events because we've done, I got to talk about that later, but we've done video game parties like to celebrate our anniversary. And she was there because she was competing in one of the tournaments. And I loved her so much. Like, man, she's super cool. She's a true gamer. Like, she could play pretty good. And eventually got her in. Paris, which he's with us now, he got to see a video that came out 10 years ago that I went to Microsoft headquarters because they invited us for a game and stuff, to play a game and then do some interviews. And it was me and one of my boys that had a podcast at that time. So we were talking about like, oh, that we're out there, like we're independent. You know, it's us versus the corporate podcast, like things like that, right? And he was like, man, I would love to do this, and I would like to attend events too. And then he contacted me, and then we became good friends. And then he had his own podcast for years, and then he stopped because he wasn't having fun. And then one day, he got the same game as us, the same game that we bought at the same time. And I was like, hey, I would like to invite you so we could talk about the game that came out. It was called BioShock 2. He was like, all right. So we talked about it. And that episode was so good that everybody was like, man, you should bring him back. You should let him join the podcast. I'm like, we'll see. So I started talking to Pete, which is my business partner. And eventually we got him in. He was like, sure, I'll join. So we like did a crazy post on our website, like, oh, Paris is back. He's back podcasting. Everybody in the gaming community, like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So he's been with us since then. And then Pete, his wife used to work with me at Discovery Channel. And one day I had I can't remember the company that sent me Guitar Hero 2 that just came out, brand new.
Yeah.
And I had it before it was in stores. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have a Guitar Hero 2 party. Come to my house. We're going to go in the backyard, speakers, big screen. Let's play the game. So he came. He was like, oh my God, could I interview him to get feedback about the game? And he loved it so much that he was bugging me for weeks. Can I join your team? Can I join your team? So then EA hit me up and they were like, Danny, we're going to have a showcase. We'd like to invite you. I couldn't go due to work and everything. So I was like, all right, I'm going to test this guy out.
Oh, wow.
Pete, come over here, Pete. So I called him. I go, look, we'd like to go to San Francisco. He goes, for what? I go, do I have to pay? I go, no. They'll pay for everything. Flight, hotel, taxi, everything. You just got to go over there and record an interview. He's like, okay. So he got there, nervous as hell. First major media event. He's not part of the crew yet. I was just testing him. And he did a great job. And I was like, man, welcome to the team. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. You know, so that's how I got like the people that we have now. I mean, there's so many that joined back then, but those are the 4 that eventually joined with me. And I forgot to mention that, you know, I launched this podcast with my brother. So the first episode that we ever recorded, I waited for him. He came home from work, 2:00 in the morning. I had my Mac. I was like, let's do this show. He's like, all right. So I went outside with him, and I went inside of my father's car. The reason why I didn't want to wake him up, it was 2:00 in the morning, right? And it was soup. I remember that night. It was really cold, man. And I had like a list, like stuff we were going to talk about, different topics. And we recorded our first episode like that. And then I was like, all right, man, it's time for us, our staff pick. So let's go outside. So I had my laptop and I used, my God, what's the name of that software? It's like, I think it's Photo Booth. That's the one it's called for the Mac. Yeah. It's like one of those, like you use your camera. I took a picture. My first staff pick was with that. On the street, like sitting out on the street like that. 2:00, like 3:00 in the morning after that, man. And that's how we build our, just strictly like that, man.
Do you take time? I mean, we're talking about it now, but do you stop and like smell the roses sometimes and just think about like what, you know, just what you described is like crazy nostalgia, crazy good memories.
Everything was just organic, man. It's just organically just went around and it just went around, man. It was nothing like I had this plan. I'm gonna do this marketing thing. Like, okay, we're gonna post this. Nah, nothing like that. It just went around, man. And I feel that's why how we became successful, because we were just doing things without knowing what was gonna happen. And then eventually people just spread the word. They liked it so much, and it was something totally new at that time. It just went around. Like we were even featured on MTV True Life. We were interviewing a pro gamer that MTV was filming him, and we didn't know. So we were there talking about him. Hey, so how you doing? Hey, by the way, Danny, before we record, is it okay to MTV film this? I go, sure. I don't. Hey, more power to you, man. I don't care. So then they recorded it, and the clip got me so mad because they put and a local radio station was instead of a podcast. So I was like, oh my God, we're not a radio station. Oh my God, why are you doing this to me? But yeah, at least our listeners and my friends, they were like, oh my God, that's Danny and his brother on True Life. That's so crazy. So
when you were talking about how you put the crew together, and then things keep happening with the show, and like you had Aisha Tyler on, and I think, was it Paris that interviewed her?
Yeah, it was me and Paris. Yeah. Paris like, yo, man, I'm nervous, but he's like, oh my God, I have the biggest crush on her. I was like, oh my God. But like, I know Aisha, I'm like, all right. But he was like, yo, total fanboy. Oh my God. That was a special moment.
It was cool because it's kind of like, they have that opportunity to think about, man, if Danny hadn't given us the chance, now I'm here, I'm interviewing Aisha Tyler, and who knows where you're going to go from here. I mean, you've already crazy name dropping, or just in the 10 years you have, but I mean, it's so cool because you gave people a chance, and it kind of it's like advice for people who are looking at co-hosts too. Like, how do you decide who's going to be part of your show without losing whatever it is that got you to that point to begin with? Mm-hmm.
See, with us, we get a lot of invites to travel all around the country, sometimes international trips to get to see games early, and companies, they want me to go. They're like, Danny, come right away. But I want my crew to shine too. They are very talented too. Why not? So Paris and Pete, they went to London. I wanted to go to London, but I gave them the opportunity, Pete went to Canada twice for a game. Patrick, he's been traveling everywhere. And he's the craziest thing. When he started, he was underage, right? So his first event, oh my God, I'll never forget this, man. His first event, he went to the event. They pay for everything, flight, hotel, everything, food. Yeah. So he gets there, goes to the venue. And this was in LA. So he's there lined up with other journalists. And this kid is 19 years old, right? So he had his record and everything. The people that were in charge of the club, nah, man, let me see your ID first. And show him my ID. Sorry, I can't let you in. Nah, but they invited me. I came all the way from Georgia to go to this event for me to cover this game and stuff for the podcast. Like, nah, we can't let you in. It will be, the club will get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So he waited outside for hours in the cold, man. Hours. And eventually one of the developers came out and he did the interview without even seeing the game. He had no clue what was the game, nothing. So he did everything like that. Just, oh my God. He called me Danny, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, dude, don't worry about it. He was frustrated. Dude, there's nothing I could do. I'm in Miami. You're in LA. But he did his thing. He recorded an interview and it came up pretty good, but he couldn't go inside, man. So every time I see him at that time, I was like, oh, you were drinking milk at that time. You couldn't drink no beer or anything. I mean, now he's 20 something now, but that was hilarious, man. But we learned from that stuff, Look, hey, I blame the PR. They never mentioned that to us. Oh, he's going to be at a club. Is he underage? Nothing like that, so. We learned.
I'm reminded of something you said in one of the shows I was checking out. How important this is to you, like that, the show, the quality of the show, and giving opportunities to people. I think you said something like you don't like hanging with negative people, and I think that's part of like what you're talking about here, about having people around you that are just have that same attitude, can-do attitude that you have, and just that same passion that you have.
Yeah, you know what? I believe in karma. I feel that you hang out with the wrong people, negative energy is just going to be surrounding you, man. So my crew and my friends and certain people that I'm cool with, they're very, very positive. I like to hang out with them. I feel that if I'm surrounded with negative people, I feel that opportunities are going to go down. The podcast is just going to sound like crap. And just my vibe is just going to sound like crap too, because I don't want our listeners to listen to the show. Because look, they're stressed out with their own personal problems. They're going to go to work. They got to go to school or something. And every time they listen to the show, now it gets them excited. Like, oh man, and it gets them in a good mood, and there's kids that contacted me, even parents, thanking me like, I'm happy that you guys don't curse, or my kid is working on a project. Is it okay for my kid to mention you at a presentation in school or in college? I'm like, yeah, go for it, man. Like, and there was even a social worker that hit us up sometime last year. There was this kid that she was having a lot of problems and stuff, and she I probably get a little emotional right here, right? So she was having issues like with her family and stuff, and he told her about our podcast, and she got so motivated to study video game design and stuff like that, and she was like, man, I've never heard of a video game podcast. Like she got in a really good mood, man, and it helped her for a while. And then a couple months ago, he hit us up that she passed away. And when he sent me that email, I remember I was there with my girlfriend, we're watching TV, and when I hear my phone, I'm like, oh, let me pick it up, see what it is, And I read the email, dude. I started crying. She's like, hey, what happened? Like, and I told the story what happened, that one of the listeners that got motivated to go to school for video game design just passed away, and it just, dude, it hurt me so much, man, and I feel that us podcasters, we could change people's lives, man. We change her life, we change a lot of people's lives, and that to me is so important, man. Us just being us, and just sending that positive energy to other listeners from around the world, man. You never know. Like I said in the beginning, man, you never know who's listening, man. And they appreciate that. I have cousins. They're 7, 8 years old. That when they see me, they're like, "Oh my God, Godfrey!" They go crazy. And some of them, they want to do the same thing. They want to become a podcaster. They want to get involved with the video game industry or things like that. I'm always giving them advice and giving them games. One of my godson, I gave him my old mixer, my mics, because I want him to do the same thing, because I heard my cousin was telling me that he opened his own YouTube channel. So I was like, let me check out his YouTube channel. So I was listening to it, right? And you could hear that he's using his built-in mic from his computer. So he's telling his sister, shh, don't say anything. I'm recording here. So you hear my cousin washing the dishes and stuff. You can hear in the background, right? And he's like, Mom, shh, shh. Right? So it reminded me of me when I was young.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna give this mixer to him, man, and just let him do his thing and record and whatever, And he saw me the other day thanking me, like, oh, thanks, but I really don't know how to use it. But I'm like, don't worry, one of these days I'm going to get together and I'm going to show you how to use it. So I love giving back, man. And it's not even about I'm going to get back good things back to me. It wasn't even about that. It's just helping other people, man, So it's important to me, man. When I went on stage, during podcast movement and I cried is because I really got emotional. Like I went through a lot building our podcast, you know. One of the persons that I dedicated the award. Her name is Trixie. She used to be the community manager at Microsoft. When the first episode came out, she was the first one that contacted us within 24 hours. And she was like, "Can I interview you guys?" So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So she interviewed us, and she put us on Xbox.com and all these other Microsoft websites. She even posted us on, like, when as soon you turn on the Xbox console, there's like a dashboard comes up.
Mm-hmm.
You see our name. Check out Xbox.com. We interview GamerTagRadio. And this is the time that everybody's like, "What is this?" They've never done that before. And I still have that pic to this day. And so then I found out last year that she had breast cancer.
Wow. So
I went on stage and I just literally like cried and just dedicated that to her because she helped us a lot. She helped me get a lot of interviews within the company, like people in the company stuff. And now she's cancer free. Like we're good friends still. We always talk. You know, she doesn't work at Microsoft anymore, but like little things like that, you know, just give back, you know. So,
man, those are amazing stories. And I think I think people just hear the passion in your voice, right? They hear like how you when you people say, "Oh, I care about my listeners," but you, I mean, you're for real, like 100% real. And,
oh yeah, no, definitely,
you know,
definitely. They can make or break us, basically, man.
Yeah,
you know?
And the fact that you understand that as the years go by, you know that role transitions. You know, and you had people that inspired you, but then you realize, well, there's now people looking at me, and people looking at me to set an example, and I can now be the person who inspires the next generation of podcasters, like you said, or you know, whatever it is. And I can tell, man, I can see how you take that role so seriously. Like you know that the power that you have to change people's lives, and you have changed people's lives, and there's going to be other people's lives that you're going to change as well. And I mean, it's so, that role as like Hall of Fame is so well deserved, just because you're such an ambassador for podcasting. And you know, I just don't see any of that changing in you, and just that's what you're going to keep doing as long as you're, you know, as long as you have a podcast. And I think as long as you live, I think that's just going to be who you are.
Yep. Yeah. And I know, just I'm happy, man. I'm happy where I'm at. You know, I know there's gonna be bigger things coming up, and I mean, there's a lot, dude. There's a lot of stories I really never talked about. Like our community parties, just interviews. I'll give you one example. 2 years ago, I went to an event that EA inviting us, and it was a bunch of YouTubers. Everybody was YouTube, and we were the only podcast in that event. So then I looked at Paris, and I was like, "Paris, man, we're like dinosaurs, dude. Like, look at this video or like audio, man. I don't know." So we went there, we went inside, and the majority of YouTubers, they just want to get gameplay. They don't care about interviews, you know. Some do, and they did interviews, whatever, with the developers, and then it was our turn to do an interview. And we sat down with 3 developers, and we were asking like the best questions. And honestly, we had nothing written down. It was just the vibe, like how it is now with us. And at the end of the night, they went to the PR and were like, "Who are these guys?" They were like the best part of the whole event. It was just sitting down with them and just talking about our game to them, because we, as a fan of gaming, I want to know like how was it like their personal lives working on these games. What was the things that inspired them to work on this? Like, I want to get I want to know more about you.
Yeah.
Why I should support your game, you know? And dude, to this day, I go to like other parties and other events, and I see them. We're gonna talk. We work out something. We gotta talk. So little things like that. Look, we had no video camera. It was just us with our recorder and our mic. and just the power of our voices completely changed the way when it comes to like doing interviews. You know, every person that we interview, they feel so comfortable, and they will talk to us and will say things a lot more than just a regular interview. You know, when a journalist sit down, they're thinking about clickbaits, you know, yeah. Clickbait articles. Us, we're thinking of how are you going to make me buy your game?
Yeah, tell a story.
Tell a story. Tell us about you. Like, you know, us doing those interviews, it helped us be like in so many different websites. Forbes, like, and all this stuff, and CNN, and it was just us being ourselves, you know?
Because you cared.
So, because I cared. Yeah, we cared. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably talk for another couple hours.
I know. It's deep. It's deep. I'm telling you, it was the same exact vibe with Dave Jackson. Dave was like, Danny, man, damn, I wish I had a recorder, man. We were there for hours, just deep conversation. You know?
Well, the good thing is this time we do. So
yeah, that's true.
What I know you said, I remember you made a comment that your father said to you after he heard that you had won. I wonder if you could kind of briefly talk about that and why that was important.
So the Miami Herald, well, actually, let me go a little bit back. Throughout the years, I was doing a podcast, and he was like, what is it you're doing? You're wasting all this money. Why are you traveling? Why are you taking vacation from work? And he supported me. He was just confused about the whole thing. Like, what is it that you do? You know? So then the Miami Herald interviewed me because of the whole podcasting thing, the podcast, the Hall of Fame, us, it was our 10th year. And they put us on the front page of the newspaper. So he goes to the store, because I told him, "Bob, go to the store, buy the newspaper. You have to read this. It's good." So it was two versions. It was like the English version and the Spanish version. So he got the English version. So he bought it. He started reading it. He sees him on the cover. He calls me crying. He's like, Danny, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And then he started reading the Spanish one, and he understands a little bit more. He's like, okay. He's still not 100%. I just tell him the easiest way, Pop. It's like a radio show. People go online and they find us. It's like you, when you listen to TuneIn Radio, it's like that. People find us and they listen to us every week. He's like, oh, okay. So what is it? You put music? I go, no. We used to back in the days, but we're just talking about different games. And if we like it or not, when we travel, we interview. He's like, oh, okay. But when I mentioned that was another moment at the Hall of Fame that I was like, I was about to cry. I was like, you know, like almost there, you know. But I highly recommend for you guys to listen to Podcast Movement Sessions. They interviewed me back in November, December. I took Jared to CBS Radio Studios. We recorded there.
Nice.
And dude, it was the greatest conversation. Like, to me, like, I listened to all of the episodes, right? And not only me, but other people, like, dude, that was the best episode, like, from that whole Podcast Movement Sessions. Because the stories I was telling Jared, he's like, yo, I've never, like, these people never heard about this. You know, the same thing what I'm doing with you, you know? So I highly recommend to listen to it, because it's like something really, really dope and cool. So check it out.
Well, man, yeah, you got probably another 20 more stories in your back pocket.
I have way too many stories. But we'll be here for hours.
Yeah. No. But I just love the fact that when you tell those stories, you are just painting the picture for the listener. You know, by virtue of you telling the story, the listener gets to know who you are, because they can hear the passion in your voice. They can hear the way that those stories still resonate with you. You know, they can tell that they had an impact on you. And so because you're a great storyteller, now people are painting a picture who didn't know who you are. after this hour and a half, they're just like, I got a feeling for who he is, and I understand why he's successful. I understand why he's going to keep doing this until the day he dies, and why he has such a rabid fan base, and why he's able, he's keynoting at a conference next week, because people want to hear more of that. People want realness, and people want real talk, and people want, just genuineness. And I think that's kind of like the new, I don't know. I feel like that's the new thing that's coming out. It's not new. It's old. It's just oldest, conversation and storytelling and being real goes back as far as we can remember, right? But I think that's what makes the podcasts and the really, really the ones that are going to succeed are the ones that can do that in a way that people connect with. 'Cause it's all about connecting. We're all like human beings walking this earth, dying to make connections with other human beings, right? So like when we can do that, we have an opportunity to do that. We find our own individual tribes, and it just puts a smile on our face. And I think, you put a smile on my face tonight, man. And I think
many times. He's like, oh my God, are you serious? What? Yeah, man, it's crazy. And you know what? It's the vibe too, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was extremely tired because it was just been a very long day. But look, me sitting down with you, I'm awake. I'm not even tired anymore, So yeah, it's just the vibe, man. Like that's how it is. Like when we do interviews, it's the same thing, man. Like I want the person I'm going to be interviewing, I want them to feel comfortable, and see what happens from there, man. So.
Yeah, you mentioned like negative energies and stuff, and I'm a huge, listeners have heard this tons of times, but I'm a huge believer in like energy exchange. And so like I mentioned, it was late here as well, and I was like, but like you said, when we start talking, I feel like there's this energy exchange, and kind of we like powered each other up a bit. We're just like, because we're engaged, and like I'm digging what you're telling me, and I'm just like transfixed, and we're looking at each other now on Skype, and I think it's just a real conversation, and I'm just looking forward to getting together in person sometime soon as well, man.
Definitely. Hopefully I can get a shirt too, man. Fuck at Junkies, what? It's like
yeah, apparently that was all the talk about podcast movement. We were just roaming the hallway.
Dude, it was shiny, man. It was like, honestly, out of all the shirts I got to see at podcast movie, that was the one that was like outshining everybody else, man. I was like, man, that yellow was like a yellow. Was it an orange?
Yeah, yellow orange.
It's like a very bright color with dark letters, man. And it was, dude, it stood out from far away. I'm like, these people are going around. I see Rob getting a shirt. I'm like, man, how I can get a shirt, man? If I don't know them like this.
That's funny. Awesome, man. Nah, you definitely got one coming, man.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, but I hope you're listening to like this, like our conversation. So please let me know. Was this good? Was this bad?
Yeah.
Let me know, man. Cause I have hundreds and hundreds of stories, man. Oh. We should do a part 2 in the future.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2 in the future. I think so. I think I just wanted to give you, man, a platform, and I started this to get to know like the voices behind the microphone a bit more, and the more I do it, the more I go reach out and find people that I'm like, man, I should have been talking to this person a while ago, or why don't I know this person, or why haven't I talked to this person, why hasn't this person been on the show? And you were one of those folks that I'm like, this is going to be a good conversation, and I just want to give you a platform and let people know who you are, who don't know, who are just getting started with podcasting, because there's a lot of like interesting cats out there, man. And I think
man, dude, there's a lot that also been doing this for a very long time. They just don't go out there, man, and I want to give them props too, so they contribute in our community too, with the whole podcasting stuff, man, so I feel that it's good to learn about them too, man. It's just hard, man. There's so many podcasts, so I understand that part, man, so. Yeah,
it's crazy now. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
So thanks so much again for being generous with your time, generous with your stories, and just generally opening up and being like super like raw, with the stuff that's important for you. I mean I think that's just something that I respect like 1,000%. And I'm glad we had this conversation, and I'm glad we got to chat.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite, man. I had a blast. I had a lot of fun. It's like I feel that telling my stories, I hope this inspire other people too that's listening to start their own thing, to their own podcast, and like I can't wait for Podfest, man, because there's a lot of people that probably never heard of me, never heard of you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna hear this interview, whatever. So I feel that it's good for me to just continue telling the stories. Like there's a lot of stories that I mentioned here that I've never talked about in other shows, like ever.
I appreciate that.
So this is like an exclusive for Podcast Junkies.
Oh no, it's funny because on your show you're like, "Yo, is this an exclusive? Yo, you got to tell them. You got to tell them that yo exclusively on Podcast Junkies.
Yeah.
Danny's gonna break down a story that he never told. I'm learning from you, man. I gotta put that in the show notes. But exclusive.
Yeah, definitely. No, but we definitely gotta talk some more in the future, man. But thanks for the invite, though, man.
So where's the best place for folks to track you down online?
Go to GamerTagRadio.com. Play.it/GamerTag. We're there too, or we're everywhere. Spotify, iTunes, all that other platforms. Where you just search us, we're there. Or if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, Godfrey, GODFREEE. Some people might think I'm an atheist. No, that was because my cousin, they used to call me Gilbert Godfrey back in the days. And I was like, you know what? I'm in a hip hop crew. I'm going to change my name to Godfrey. So I flipped the name. Instead of Godfried, I put Godfrey. So that's how that name came up.
That's hilarious. I didn't even get a chance to ask you that. That's a great story. So what? Go ahead. So what else?
No. And also Facebook. We're there. GamerTagRadio. We're everywhere. So just search.
So one of the things I usually do in my outros is I let the regular listeners know that I create I call it a retention hashtag. So it's my way of seeing who made it this far, and I have them create like a little hashtag. But I think since you like freestyling, so we're gonna figure it out together here.
Okay.
We got to come up with like a unique hashtag. So I thought maybe something I didn't get to ask you. What's the first video game you ever played?
First video game I ever played was an Atari 2600 Defenders.
Defenders. Okay, so I got it. Danny's Defenders.
There you go. That's my first game ever made, man. Or if you want to take it to another side too, like the show that I started my whole internet radio show back then, PSO Radio was called my my internet radio show. You could put that hashtag PSO Radio.
Okay. There's probably not a lot of hashtags with that around now, right?
Oh, dude, I don't know if there is or not, but
yeah, let's do that. Let's do.
Or you could put Godfrey PSO Radio, whatever.
We'll do hashtag PSO Radio if you made it this far. Then tag me, podcast_junkies, and Godfrey on Twitter, and let us know that you made it this far, and hopefully you checked it out and you haven't fallen asleep by now. Hour and a half into this.
No, we're gonna make this very interesting, guys. Trust me, part 2 is gonna be more intense.
Yeah. Next level type stuff.
Definitely, man.
All right, Danny. Thanks so much, man. I had a blast.
Me too, man. Thanks, man.
What? Okay, folks. We kept talking for like almost an hour afterwards. It was that awesome. And he's got tons more stories, I told you. And they're all good. They're all great. I was just sitting there, with my mouth open at some of the things he was saying, and I'm sure you were too. You can hear the passion. You can feel it in his voice. I mean, it's real as they get. Man, I almost feel bad that I haven't had him on earlier, but I think everything in its own time, everything for a reason, and I think this is the right time to have him on Podcast Junkies. And man, talk about the epitome of a podcast junkie. That's him. And when we, it's like, I don't know, man, Voltron or something. When you connect with like-minded folks, just everything clicks. And he alluded to the fact that he wasn't, he was a little bit tired, and to be honest, I was too. It was late here. We started recording probably around 5 p.m. On the West Coast, but man, when we connect and we talk about things that we love, then everything flows, man, and it's so cool when that happens. And I'm glad I was able to bring this conversation to you, and that you're going to hear more about him. And if you've never heard about him, now you do, and now you can check his show out. I had so much fun doing the research because even though I'm not a gamer or super gamer, I just. You can tell when people are having a conversation, you just enjoy listening to them because they're fun. They're having a good time, and if you've got a podcast, make sure you're having a good time because people can hear it. If you don't want to record or you're in a bad mood, then don't record because it's not going to sound good. So much competition out there, man. We just have to always bring our A game. And you do that by talking about stuff you like, talking to people you like talking to, just bringing passion into everything you do. You should do that with a podcast. You should do that with life, right? Right? Why wouldn't you? If you're doing it with a job, if you're in a job and you don't like the job and you don't have passion to it, everyone's going to be able to tell. You're not going to be fooling anyone. Bring passion into your everyday life, and you'll be all the better for it. I promise you. So you heard the retention hashtag. We dropped it inside the interview. So if you missed it, then do a little bit of a rewind and catch that. I can't imagine anyone would actually skip the interview and just go back to the outro, which would be really strange. But if you did, then let me know. Check out the podcastjunkies.com. This one will be at /78. All the show notes, including the video of Danny with Bill Gates. Yeah, the Bill Gates. That was an amazing story. So check that out. And other stuff we talked about is going to be in there as well. Don't forget to support the show. Subscribe. New listeners, I'm talking to you. Subscribe. What app are you using? Are you using the iTunes app on the iPhone? Don't do that. It's not a good app. There's so many other good ones out there. There's Overcast, which I use, which is amazing. And I think do a little bit of research. Casts is another good one. And Castro, really good app. Find something that makes the experience that much more enjoyable, and then subscribe to Podcast Junkies. And tell your friends, if you're introducing people to podcasts, find one of the episodes that you like and introduce them to the show. And then, spread the word. You are my street team. We talked about the street team in there. And you are my street team. And I can't do this without you spreading the word about the shows. And that's how we just let more people hear about it. And that's always a good thing. I'm looking forward to the Podcast Junkies talk show on some sort of TV network, maybe on Amazon. And then I'll find a way to get my super loyal listeners onto the show. And leave a rating and review if you haven't done so already. But podcastjunkies.com/iTunes. Engage, comment, get up out of your seats, and participate in the Podcast Junkies party. We got plenty of love. I got plenty of love for everyone. If you just reach out. If you don't, I don't know who you are. There's people listening to the show. I see the downloads. But I'd like to get to know you. So say hi in your forum of choice. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email, feedback@podcastjunkies.com. I love you guys. I love you for listening. And stay tuned. We've got some fantastic episodes coming up. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing evening. And I really hope you enjoyed it. So take care.